Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Brun. Today, Vincent LaRusso and I are going to be talking about the newest release from Kiss, Off the Soundboard, the Asylum Tour show. We give our thoughts and our opinions, and we look forward to seeing and hearing yours as well. Alrighty, lots to cover in this episode. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of The Rock Experience with Mike Bryan. Today, I have with me my buddy, the man in black, the partner in crime, the chemist, the man who seems like he may be having a little bit of a cold. Welcome, Bloody. How you doing?
Yeah, no cold. Just the this is my you know day after the gig voice after singing 41 songs in one night.
Why was
So
it only 41 songs?
I know why. Yeah, why? I don't know. I
How
should have
many
made it
sets is that? Is
42.
that two sets, three sets?
Three.
Three sets,
I
41
don't typically
songs.
do 41. I typically do 36, which is still a lot. But this was a 4 hour block rather than a 3 hour block of music.
And only five
Not
extra songs.
continuous.
Five extra songs in an hour. So what did you do? Stairway to Heaven four times? Five
Yeah.
times?
Well, you get, with the extra break,
Right.
normally we, like say we do a 20-minute break with two sets. So now you're doing two 20-minute breaks or 25-minute breaks. So just, you know,
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, and then you were up even earlier than me. You texted me, I'm out for my morning run, and you're like, I'm ready to record if you want. I'm like, what do you mean? You're
yeah.
up at like the crack of dawn, pretty much.
Well, as we get older, I don't sleep as late as I used
I
to.
could
Like,
do it all last
from there,
night.
yeah, no, I got decent sleep. Maybe 6 hours. Not bad.
You seem a little under it a little bit right now.
Just start the episode. You'll see I'll be full in
Hmm.
full force.
Do,
Don't
do
worry
you
about
do you have beverage?
it. Come on now. Come on.
Snapple?
I'm enjoying these days the zero sugar. Where's the camera? Over here.
Zero
Look,
cigar.
you can see my ring
Uh-huh.
light there. Ring
Uh,
light.
oh, there you go.
Ring
Yes,
light.
yes, yes. Okay.
Ring light. Yeah, quality beverage.
Okay. All right, very good now.
Probably
Mine.
the
Huh?
probably the whatever makes it zero sugar. I'm drinking chemicals that are probably going to kill me. But let me not have the sugar though.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
Well, my beverage, and then we'll get started with what we're going to talk about. My beverage has the sugar in it because, like I said, I just came from a 7 mile run early in the
Yeah.
morning here today.
Michael Brun to Michael Run.
That's right, to Michael Run. And let me just say something for a moment here. I've had a few people comment both on my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, acknowledging that I've lost a bit of weight. So I just want to thank everybody for your kind words and your encouragement. And you know what? I will take a moment also while I'm thinking of this. So in light of that, I've actually decided to run a full marathon for the first time, which I've never done in my life. And I'm actually raising money for my brother-in-law who has Parkinson's disease and through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So what I will do is I'll put the link to that right underneath this video if you're watching this on YouTube. If you so care to donate, it doesn't go to me. It goes directly to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's disease. Obviously, no obligation, but I just figured since we're talking about our morning drinks and rituals that I would bring that up. And if anybody would like to donate, that would be great. And if not, that's totally fine too. But it's for the Michael J. Fox Foundation, not to me, just so everybody knows that. So that was my morning, kind of gearing up, running, and trying to get ready for a 26-mile run, which for the life of me, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, the good. I mean, I've known your journey here because we talk very often, and we when we get together, usually at your place, I like to do our walk around the neighborhood
Yes.
and around your neighborhood, which I just think about the amount of mileage that you're just running, and we're doing a walk, which might be a 2 mile walk, whatever
Right.
we've done, or whatever, three, I don't remember. So, I mean, it's incredible that you could do that at this age. I know very hard for me, especially with my knees and my feet. I could never do that. And
Yes.
I used to be on the track team in high school, cross country,
Hmm.
long
You'd run
distance
from New
running.
York to California, right?
What's that?
You'd run from New York to California cross country.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just doing
You're like Forrest Gump.
you just totally stepped on my Grease reference.
Oh, I'm
Remember?
sorry. I'm
Remember when
sorry.
you remember Travolta? He was trying to impress,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yeah, yeah, of
and he's
course.
like long distance running or something like that.
Uh, that I don't remember.
How do you not remember that? How many times have you seen that movie? I've seen it about
It's
70,
probably been
8,000
20,
times.
25 years since I've seen Grease.
Yeah. The best part of that movie, well, one of the best, is when he strikes out. No, he goes foul ball. He gets the guy's catcher's mask and he pulls it.
Yes.
Classic.
Oh man. Maybe one day we'll have to do a look back on the Grease soundtrack.
Hey, I've been telling you for quite some time that I wanted to kind of expand this out a little bit more.
Yes, yes, I know.
That delves into the movie world. And we know that a lot of people like yourself who have musical interests also have interest in, like, in Star Wars, like you do, or other types of. So yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That would
Why
be.
we and what are we doing today?
But I was just gonna say, but for today, we will get back on track and we will talk about the new Kiss off the Soundboard release. Just came out yesterday. And it's pretty amazing. We're talking about some of these things. You mentioned Michael J. Fox, and instantly, oh, I mentioned Michael J. Fox, and instantly my mind goes to Back to the Future and in the 80s. And it's amazing to me when we talk about the 80s, Bruce and Eric Carl lineup. This is the first official live CD, well, recording, I should say, because there is no CD for most of the world, right? The first official live recording for Bruce and Eric in the history of the band. Now, I know that there's the Animalized live video, but I'm talking about an audio product. I think that's pretty friggin' wild that with all the different off the soundboards they've done that it took this long for us to get a Bruce and Eric Carr recording. And I'm glad that we finally have one, but did it surprise you that they waited this long?
I don't know if I would say I was surprised. I think, I don't know what their priority in order. And obviously, this is under the Pop House umbrella. As a matter of fact, you could see, at least I'm looking at the title right now.
Yep.
It says copyright 2025 Pop House under exclusive license to UMG Recordings.
Yep. Okay. The first Pop House release.
Yeah. So is that coincidence that it came out, or was this something that Pop House wanted out because they looked and said, like, all right, what have you put out? Okay, this would be a good era to cover because there isn't, to your point, a recording that's an official release with Eric and Bruce, and obviously Gene and Paul.
Right.
So I don't know if I was surprised, but I was happy that it was, that was finally. And for me personally, I know we've talked about it on the show before, and this might be their first time listening to your show. The first time I saw Kiss was in '86, which was about 5 months after this particular show.
Yep. So for you, and I was going to bring that up, right? So for you, like you said, it's the first time you saw Kiss. Listening to this album, do you flash back to that moment in time? And do you feel like a 15, 16-year-old kid again listening to this record?
Yeah, it kind of is I got a lot of opinions about this.
Okay.
I definitely have a lot of opinions about this, but it does bring me back to my youth, for sure, because like I said, it does remind me of the Animalized video, because that's like kind of that time of when
sure. Right. It's only 12 months later, almost to the day.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, to me, that's one of the things I liked about this is, and look, you and I grew up as teenagers in the 80s, and it instantly brought me back to that feeling and that excitement of going to see Kiss in the 80s. It seemed like, every 12 months they were playing back in New York. And it was an exciting time to be a fan. While the music may not have stood the test of time as much as those classic albums from the 70s, if you were a teenager in the 80s, you understand what Vin and I are talking about here when we say that it was just something about that time period and being a fan in that time period and being a teenager and having a new Kiss album coming out basically every September, every year, that was exciting. And we really haven't had that since with Kiss or really with any bands. I mean, no bands really put out one album now every year, tour for that album on a new cycle. The industry is just so different now. And it was like, to me, it was always exciting. September, it was back to school, which was upsetting that the summer was over. It was back to school, but offsetting that new Kiss album coming out. So it was always something exciting, so it kind of offset that disappointment of going back to school. And, I was talking with somebody online last night about it just in general. And it's like, if you weren't there, you just don't understand the excitement of that time period. And to me, listening to this, and we'll talk a little bit more, and I've looked forward to you sharing some of your opinions on it, but listening to this record just instantly brings me back to that time period. Cheesy Paul introductions and all. It's all part of the time to me. So before we talk about all of the details of the recording, though, let's just talk specifically about the sound on the album. What did you think of the overall sounds? Because the off the soundboards have been a little, I'll say, hit and miss. The Poughkeepsie one, as cool as it was with Mark St. John, the mix at times a little rough. Some of the other ones were better than that. What did you think of the overall sound on this?
I thought the overall sound was good on it. The vocals were very prominent. I mean, clearly, I don't know how much post-production did. There was I could hear where they put reverb and stuff on Paul's voice and Gene's voice. It was interesting to hear. The drum sound was very kind of different from the Animalized tour video.
Yep.
More electronic sounding. Obviously, he brought the electronics in.
The Simmons drums, right?
Yeah, the Gene Simmons drums. What brand was Simmons?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with Gene. So it was
surprisingly not.
Yeah, which I'm really. I don't think that aged very well. I mean, we always talk about the 5150 album, and he used the only thing he used, which was a real drum on that, was his signature snare,
right.
But everything else was electronics. But everything was very prominent in the mix. I didn't hear anything as far as levels and stuff like that. I thought it was done very well.
Yeah.
Good recording.
Yeah. Now you say that the electronic drums didn't age well, and I agree with that. And I know I'm jumping to almost like the middle of the show, but to me, I always thought it was cool in Eric's drum solo when he incorporated the electric pads into it and almost made it like he was playing a song. So I always enjoyed them. In fact, that's probably my favorite part of any of his drum solos across any of the tours. So as much as I could agree with you that the electronic drums don't age well within songs, I do like the way Eric incorporated those electronic drums into his drum solo.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know how many guys were doing it at the time, and right. I know he was very proud of that. And later on, and other tours when they I think they took away his drum solo, he was really upset about that.
Yep.
Yep. I, in particular, and we could get to it once we start talking about the track listing, I've never been a fan of solos by any. Even when I was playing drums, I'd rather. I mean, we can talk about it. I mean, I'd rather hear more songs and. You're talking with the solos, and with Oh Susanna, it's about 22 minutes of wasted opportunity where we could hear a lot more Kiss songs. I mean, if my math serves me correct, 3 times 7 is 21. So let's just say let's say even 5 other songs. I'm taking away 2. I would have rather have heard, but I do agree. The way he was using synth sounds, which sound like synth guitar type sounds to play along to, in a solo was pretty cool at the time.
Yep. And look, I 100% agree with you regarding the solos. They are completely unnecessary, as much as I even really love hearing Eric's drum solo. But it was also just the sign of the times again for the 80s. I mean, you went to a concert and everybody was doing solos. Every guitarist, for crying out loud, Eddie Van Halen, who was, you kind of wanted to hear one of his solos, but his guitar solo was like 15 minutes when you went to see Van Halen. Michael Anthony was doing a bass solo so Alex Van Halen, I think, was usually like the third song of the night was a drum solo. It's just and I'm just using Van Halen as an example, but every band was doing solos, so it's not like Kiss was atypical in this situation. It's just, in hindsight, we'd rather have 5 other songs. I'd rather have maybe 2 or 3 more songs from Asylum, 2 or 3 more classics. That would have been good, but that is what it is. You can't put songs on a record that weren't performed back in 1985 and 1986. I mean, this is the way concerts were. back then, I remember being disappointed that there weren't a few more classics in the set list, but I don't remember back then feeling like I do now about, oh, I wish they weren't doing solos. You just kind of accepted it as that was part of going to a concert.
Well, this is what we were spoon fed at the time. It was,
Right.
it was an acceptable, but now looking at it with a different lens, it's 18 tracks, and you take four off with solos and one with Oh Susanna,
Yeah.
right? If my math serves me correct, that's 13 songs.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that was my set last night for the first set.
Right.
Say I'm
Exactly.
anything special, but
No, no, I know what you
and I
mean.
know it's a bigger thing and it's a bigger stage and a lot more moving pieces. But I often wondered what was the motivation behind solos. Was it to give the other band members a break during the show? Like each member would get a break and they could just chill, whatever. And who knows? We don't know in the depths of the groupie world. Did
Right.
they go off stage for a little, whatever? I don't know, but it was a sign of the times. And hey, listen, I spoke to my friend earlier about this, and he said, "Yeah, huge Eddie Van Halen fan, but he's like 2 or 3 minutes. That's all I needed. I didn't need
Yep.
these long, so."
Yeah. Look,
Um,
on my Facebook page, I've been doing a like this day in concert history post all year long. And I listened to a live recording from a different band every day. And probably about
yeah,
3 weeks ago, I listened to a Led Zeppelin show from 75. And the show was nearly 3 hours long. And I think they did 13 or 14 songs only
yeah,
because there were 25-minute solos and jams in the middle. And I was just like, this is freaking egregious. And this is Led Zeppelin for crying out loud, And I think there was literally a 25-minute drum solo. I'm just like, 25-minute drum solo is completely not necessary at all,
yeah,
And
yeah,
meanwhile, then I forget what song was it, Whole Lot of Love. When they got to Whole Lot of Love, they did an abbreviated version of the song. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Really?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they cut out like a third of the song. It's just like it was egregious. But point being, even in the 70s, bands were doing that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I know forever. What was it? Kiss was doing. Was it in Lick It Up? What was the one that we go? Uh, where would they have that breakout of was it Won't Get Fool Again? Is that
Yes.
Lick It Up?
Yep.
And they
Yeah.
were doing that for years, and after a while, I was just like, all right,
Right.
we could
The
retire.
first couple of years, it was cool. And then after a
Yeah, now
while,
it's
it's like,
just
enough's enough. Right.
yeah. I mean, great idea, but it's just like be done with this already. Come up with
Yep.
something else. Do it or
Agreed.
do another song and do something like this. It just
Agreed.
plays
Agreed.
itself. It wears itself out.
Yep.
They
And
had
then,
this. What was it in? What song that on this? Sorry, I still have my morning little fog gig computer. Bam, ba-da-da-dam, ba-da-da-dam,
oh yeah, like the end of Black
ba-da-da-da-da,
Diamond was
ba-da-da-da.
tacked
Yeah,
on at the end of Rock and Roll All Night.
yeah, which was very interesting. Just when you look at the track listing of Rock
Yeah,
and Roll Night, it's not the last song.
right.
That just it's almost like it's more casual. Paul does say, Rock and Roll National. We think it's the Rock and Roll
Hmm.
National Anthem.
Yep,
That whole
yep,
thing. And to think that there's 3 tracks after that, one being Oh Susanna.
right.
What was their motivation to put in Oh Susanna? Was this like, oh, this is kind of funny? This is kind of, who
I don't
knows?
know.
I
They
don't
did
know.
that for a couple. I think they did that a lot on the Animalized tour and the Asylum tour. And although I do think it was ultimately dropped from the Asylum tour when they started doing Won't Get Fooled Again and Whole Lot of Love. So
Yeah.
what were they thinking? Never heard anybody ask them, but I guess they thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's only a minute or a minute and change because it's actually to me even more of a waste of time than the solos are.
Yeah.
you know.
Um,
And you haven't even mentioned, but if you add in Paul's various song introductions, you're looking at between solos, O Susanna, and the song introductions about 30 minutes of a 90-minute concert, quote unquote,
yeah.
wasted on non-song performances.
Yeah.
Saying all of that, I'm going to go back to where I started. I wouldn't want any of that stuff cut out from the CD because to me, it's all part of the experience. And listening to this, I just had a smile from ear to ear. So I don't want people to misinterpret at least my comments of what I'm saying with the solos and the song introductions. To me, I'm glad all of that stuff is on this because it just instantly brings me back to seeing Kiss on the Asylum tour, seeing Kiss on the Animalized tour, and what it was like being at a concert. And I just, from ear to ear, I was smiling the entire time I was listening to this.
Yeah. I don't know if I was that like that. I was happy to
Okay,
hear it, but here's my problem.
go ahead.
Here's my problem, and it's hindsight, whatever they say. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, again, didn't know any better at the time, of because that's what we were accustomed to.
Mhm.
But the tempos of this record, and we've talked about this maybe
Yep.
in passing before.
Yep.
Um, the tempos are way fast. It's just hard to listen to some of these
Hmm.
songs this way now because we
Hmm.
got so accustomed to either going back and listening to the original records, or seeing them live. And really, when they played live in the last 10 years, I want to say maybe plus, we know, they're playing to a click. Everything was
Yep.
very, much like this. So every
Yep.
night the tempo was going to be exactly the same.
Yep.
But,
And they were more closer to the original recordings now, the tempos
oh,
of
yeah,
live songs.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, and I love Eric Carr, man. I do. But you know, it's just hard to listen to these songs that way. I feel like they lose their feel, and I might be upsetting Kiss fans by saying
No,
this.
no, I think most Kiss
Like,
fans agree with you and feel that way.
yeah, I mean, even a song like Cold Gin, which I know you always say boring,
Hmm.
is much more up tempo, and it's kind of funny. Eric having some liberties was cool. Cold Gin time,
Hmm.
no, it's like like he did his own thing there,
Yeah.
kind of too, you know wasn't what Peter played at all, but it was nice that they gave that flexibility. Or Bruce Kulick, when he does a solo,
Yep.
he kind of did some tastes of Ace, maybe some taste of it, but they allowed him to do his own thing.
Right.
And as we know, especially this 85, which I don't know where the height of the Eddie Van Halen guitar player obsession was, but certainly, even in Paul Stanley's guitar solo, he's doing
Hmm.
that two-hand tapping thing
Yep.
as best as he
Yep.
could,
Well, even in
which was,
Bruce's
yeah.
solo, you could hear the Eddie Van Halen influence there.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Which doesn't surprise me, right? Van
no,
Halen at that point was one of the biggest bands in the world. It's funny, I mean, you mentioned the tempos, and look, I agree with you. The tempos are a bit egregious in some cases. A song like Detroit Rock City, the tempo to me just ruins the whole feel of the song. Cold Gin, probably for me, and I've made my opinion on that song known for many years on the show.
yeah,
I probably prefer it on this off the soundboard than the, dare I say, the live version. I know that that's probably egregious to say for most
it
fans,
is,
but
it is.
I think the quicker tempo helps
Well,
me because I find the song boring.
yeah. Well, the other problem I have with this, is that they were obviously, well, I should say they were obviously. Let's just say what it is. I'm not sure what record was first where they did it, but they started writing in E standard tuning. So and they didn't tune down for Rock and Roll Night, so it sounds weird to my ears.
Right. Okay.
You could hear it that half step up,
Right.
which makes it brighter, makes
Yep.
everything brighter, as they would say.
Yeah.
So when you're doing a song like, Love Gun, another one, I hear that shift.
Mm.
And which forces Paul obviously to sing higher. And obviously he
Right.
had, there's, I don't know if this is arguably his I always say, was it the Donington performance when he did Strutter, and
Mhm.
he goes, my friend I was talking to today, he goes, I always go back and watch that video. I can't believe Paul Stanley's voice at that point. I mean, it was insane,
Right.
how
Right. Which is
Paul,
like 2 years later, 3 years
yeah,
later from this show.
right, yeah. But it just doesn't sound, again, it sounds too, dare I say, poppy, and
Yep.
and then with the tempo being fast, it loses its mojo. The
Right.
songs lost their mojo, and even songs, there was another one that they were doing at the time, which was, maybe a faster tempo. Everything was above tempo.
Mhm.
Everything,
Yes. Yes.
And I'm just wondering, like, how that decision came about.
Well, I think it's an attempt to modernize some of the classic songs and make them feel as if they're an 80s song type of thing.
Yeah,
That's what I have to think, right? Because if you go back and listen to bootlegs like I have through the years, the Creatures tour, the tempos were spot on to where they should be. In fact, I always say this, the version that they would do of I Still Love You on the Creatures tour live is phenomenal. The tempo is perfect. As the years progress, the tempo got faster and it loses that feel. And that's not, I know it's not a 70s classic song, but that's a song that to me suffers a lot from some of the faster tempos, even though they still obviously played it as a ballad, just it lost its feel. And I think it was just an attempt at those 70s songs. They were only doing a handful of them to make them feel modern. haven't heard some of those faster tempos in a few years. For me, a song like Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night really loses something with the quicker tempos. I actually enjoyed the tempo of Cold Gin, like I just said, and Love Gun actually didn't bother me either. I didn't mind a little bit of a faster tempo of that. It felt comfortable to me, but the other ones, Detroit Rock City and Rock and Roll All Night especially, just wasn't feeling those tempos. It
Yeah.
loses something for me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to
Yeah.
paint with just a broad stroke to say the tempos are no good, because for me, the tempos, Detroit Rock City, Rock and Roll All Night, and I Still Love You were the three that I just, the tempos, I wished it was a little slower.
Yeah. It should be said again, 18 tracks where they do 3 songs from the 70s at this point too, which
Right.
is, it's crazy if you think about
It is,
that.
right? Right.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. It is.
But,
But even like you were saying before, the encore is Heaven's on Fire and Lick It Up. Clearly an attempt towards elevating some of the newer material.
Which was understandable. You can't, again, you're competing. Remember, at this time, you got Motley Crue, on the rise. You got Def Leppard. Who was Leppard? Did I call him Lefford? Def Leppard.
Def
Yeah,
Leppard. Not
Yeah,
Rightford,
Def
Leppard.
Leppard. Jeff Lepfoot.
Jeff Leppard.
So they're competing against all these bands, definitely 85. I don't know if they were really calling the hair metal thing yet,
Not quite yet, but it was right on the eve of it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and the Poisons weren't there yet, and all those bands, the Cinderellas were not, It's an interesting time period because 86 is when that starts. So
yes.
What also is interesting on this record is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Eat 'Em and Smile came out in 86.
I think so, yeah.
Right?
I think you're right, yeah.
I could fact check that.
Yeah, no, I'm almost positive you're right. You can fact check it, but I'm almost positive you're right.
But my point being is that, I just remember the first time we're hearing Yankee Rose, wah, wah, wah,
Yes.
wah, 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 and Bruce Kulick was doing that, at one point. He's like, Paul, I don't remember exactly what the Tony banter was, but,
Yeah, look at the girl in the front row or something like that.
Yeah, and he's doing that. I was like, and I'm not saying Bruce was the first one to do it, but it was kind of, I was like, wait a second,
you have to look it up now. When did Yankee Rose come out? I want to say it was July.
Talking about a Yankee Rose.
I think it was July of 86, not July of 85.
Definitely 86, because I know we saw,
it was right around 4th of July.
Yankee recorded in 86, and it was June 18th, 86.
So it's funny because I never thought of that timeline. I'm so glad you brought this up, because when I heard that in Bruce's solo, and I knew he did that, of course, I instantly thought of Yankee Rose. And I'm like, oh, they're piggybacking off of David Lee Roth's popularity. But Mike, you were wrong. That is not the case.
Wow, you could be wrong.
I could be wrong. I could be right. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if anybody will understand that reference.
Billy Joel.
No, Billy Joel.
You may be wrong. You may be right.
No. That was a Pill song.
Okay, well, clearly it could have been a Billy Joel.
It could have been a Billy Joel song also, yes. But I was singing the Pill song.
Pill.
Anyway.
Can I give a pill that you never do that again?
Yes, you can. Oh, man. But I think one of the things that surprised me listening to this also was very near the front of the show. I think right before Fits Like a Glove, Paul is talking about people in this town who are afraid of rock and roll and they forget that they were young. And I was like, wow, I guess there was some kind of like protest going on. I know this is San Antonio, Texas in the 80s or whatever. But I guess there was still protests going on outside of Kiss shows in 85, 86. I honestly don't know if I remember that or realized that. I thought those protests kind of died away when the makeup came off. But apparently that wasn't the case, at least at this particular town and this particular show. So that kind of surprised me when I heard Paul saying that on the show.
Yeah. And also when it comes to what the aide of my brother told me this, I had a discussion with him very quickly through text. Because he mentioned Won't Get Fooled Again. And I said, it's not confirmed that they played this because there's no record of the set list.
Right.
And then he showed me, as I know you know, that Kiss Alive Forever book that came out that kind of documented. And on that date, there's no set list listed. But what's even more interesting is that the way they played was a 4,000 seat arena, or I don't know if that's an arena, and they had a little over 3,000 people. So this isn't even a sold out show, which again shows you, because it has the exact attendance for that show.
Right.
I think it was like 3,167. I'm just throwing that
wow.
number. I know.
Right.
So it was about 1,000
the low threes.
which You think big sound, these big concerts or Cobo
That's
Hall. I don't know how
so
big Cobo Hall.
I mean, obviously I knew that Kiss struggled with attendance in the 80s.
Yeah,
So it doesn't surprise me, yet you tell me these numbers and it's like, wow, they pulled in just only over 3,000 people for a show in San Antonio, a pretty decent sized city. That's surprising. As much as I'm
yeah,
not surprised, it's surprising.
yeah. I'm trying to look now because he sent me a video of actually showing the book. Yeah, here we go. The attendance was 3,149. The capacity is 4,109. So
Wow.
it's almost 1,000 people.
So 75% filled on a 4,000 seat
And,
arena only.
and it's not even an arena. It was a convention center at
Convention
the
center.
Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. The
Wow.
opening act is Black and Blue. So pretty crazy, right?
That's maybe one of the more surprising things. So 3,000 people, and you've got these protesters outside worrying about just, wow, talk about a whole different time in life. And, we were immune to both of those things being from New York, both of us. I never saw a single Kiss concert being protested in the 70s or 80s. And certainly when we would go see them at the Nassau Coliseum or Madison Square Garden or the Meadowlands, there was always, except for the Revenge Tour, there was always 10,000 people there.
Yeah.
So we were oblivious to the fact in the 80s that Kiss was playing in Texas to 3,000 people only.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty incredible. But overall, the show, I know you said you had some opinions. So why don't you do a little deeper dive in some of the things that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to mention is, and it's also refreshing because I cannot stomach the fact that, like, in today's music, you hear anybody live, clearly nobody sings that perfectly, and they're putting everybody through an auto tune, which pisses me off.
Mhm.
Is that there are certain songs, Tears Are Falling, where you hear Paul struggling a bit singing the song,
Yep.
and one would kind of instantly say, well, he's touring for a while, and maybe his voice was a little,
No,
no, it was, but
it's the beginning of the show.
you could hear there's one part, I think in I Still Your Love, I Still
I
Love
still love
You,
you.
where he goes to hit a note, show, where's the show? And he kind of, his voice cracks. It's refreshing to actually hear that they didn't go back and edit the stuff, because
Agreed.
clearly if this was an official release album, whether it was Alive 2, Alive 3, all that stuff was either re-recorded and whatever,
Of course.
because you could
Yep.
hear
Even the
somebody's
Animalized
jumping around.
Live, right?
Yeah.
I've seen
Oh
some
yeah.
people comment online that this doesn't sound anywhere near as good as Animalized Live. Animalized Live is touched up big time. If you don't believe
Yeah.
that, go watch. I know Bruce released two of the songs. I think one of them was Thrills in the Night,
Yeah.
right? The original soundboard recording, and listen to how different that sounds in the video. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. That's one of the things I love about these off the soundboards is that they are raw, they're untouched. They might be cleaned up sonically a little bit, just in terms of taking out tape noise and things like that, but there's no touch-ups, there's no overdubs, and that's part of the fun to me. We know concerts aren't perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but that's part of the fun for these to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that part of it I did enjoy. It's so funny to listening to Paul. I don't know
Mhm.
where he got that. He's got like a southern drawl.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna.
Where did that come from? I'm just like, truly. I mean, he's obviously trying to appeal to a certain thing, and he's trying to come off it, and it worked very well for him.
Yeah.
He is this nice little Jewish boy from Queens. You never know, but
Yeah.
a lot of John Bon Jovi did it. Bruce
Yes.
Springsteen did it. Madonna did it. Like, also remember that era of Madonna when she was British?
Yes.
At one point, she's like this. So I can like, oh, that's horrible. Like what she had
That sounded nothing like it, but that's okay.
I know. Well, again,
Oh
not
man.
female, morning voice, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking. Like you hear her singing, like I've been through the wilderness, somehow I made it through, and that Madonna voice,
Yeah.
and then
And then she's talking
definitely
in British.
yeah, or by like when she did like a prayer, there was obviously a shift in her voice, and
Yes. Yes.
but
No, I'm
but
glad
that's
you brought up the Paul Southern drawl because that to me was one of the things as I'm listening to this, besides the F-bombs being thrown around, which is so unlike Paul on stage now, it's just kind of funny. I kind of chuckle listening to the way he was his accent that he was putting on. It was just like
yeah.
it doesn't sound natural now, but back then again, I never thought twice about it back in the 80s.
No, nobody did.
Yeah.
And then it's like one point, I think, what does he call somebody his man? Where's my man? That's my manservant. Or
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah, when he wanted a guitar changed or whatever.
Yeah. And he names the guy's name.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big thing in Rock and Roll Night where they kind of goofed that whole thing off the start of the song. I don't know. that was Eric's fault or whatever. When it started, I'm like, what? Where the hell are the guitars? And then
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So then he tried, to cover it up by doing, maybe an
Like a
audience
sing along,
participation.
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just again fun that they left that stuff in there, wasn't
I
edited.
agree. I agree. And that's one of the things, again, I love is that it's completely unedited in that regards. I want to hear those kind of mess ups. Now, when you were talking about some of the singing, I thought originally what you were going to bring up is in some of the songs, you could actually hear Bruce pretty clearly singing in the background vocals. I
Mm.
remember Fits Like a Glove because I was listening to my headphones. I'm like, listen to Bruce singing the background vocals. You could like, he comes through like pretty clear in the mix. And it goes back to what you were saying before about how the album itself was mixed. I felt like I could hear in the background vocals Eric's voice clearly, Bruce's voice clearly, Paul or Gene, depending on who's doing the background vocals. It was
Hmm.
really well mixed, I felt. And I don't remember hearing Bruce's background vocal that clearly on some other recordings that I've heard over the years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely nothing was covered up vocally. I mean, it was
right.
very upfront and center,
Yeah.
and kudos to, I don't know if they have the credits. Let me see the credits if there's a mixing credit on here. They actually have that information. I see song credits. Um, but yeah, whoever was the mixer on this
Yep.
did a great job, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And while we're talking about the mixing and all of that, I even because I did listen with headphones on during the drum solo, like Eric Carr's going like around like the drum, like he's going
Yeah,
around the drums. It actually pans left to right or right to left, whichever way it goes. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like as he's going around the drums, they pan the sound from left to right also to give it a nice little audio experience as well. So I just
yeah.
thought that was kind of cool. So if you haven't listened to it on headphones or if you don't listen to it in a room where the speakers are, widely separated, you should check that out. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, and this is not specific to this show, the way Paul sometimes sings under the gun friggin' drives me crazy. And I happen to
Why?
like that song. He sings the verses very different, like the melody of the verses. He sings it kind of like in the wrong spots. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know. And he
He
did that
David
a
Lee Roth's
lot.
it. He David Lee
Yeah,
Roth's
yeah, he
it.
did that. There you go. He David Lee Roth's it, and it friggin'
Yeah,
always drives me crazy. I don't like that was probably of this entire CD my least favorite performance, even more than like Detroit Rock City with the tempos, just because I can't friggin' stand when Paul sings under the gun like that, and he did it many, many times like that. So it's not
yeah,
specific to this show, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You were talking before about the start and stop on Rock and Roll All Night and how they tried to cover it up. So I remember Paul saying something like when they started it back up, like Eric likes to play off the beat to make it
Like
sound more like
jazz.
jazz. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So as a drummer, help me out. Is that true? Does Eric play off the beat usually, or was Paul just like talking out of his ass at that
No,
point?
I think Paul was just improvising that.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm
Yeah.
like, I was like, I don't.
I think the band didn't pick up his cue with his hi hat, and it sounds like at one point they may be having problems with their monitors.
Okay, yeah,
Something with that. So I think that's all it was, but just
right,
trying to make it. I'm
yeah,
sure Eric afterwards was like, nice, blaming that one on me.
uh-huh. Right. Yeah, to me, it sounded like Bruce didn't come in with
Yeah,
the opening chords of the song.
yeah,
But then he comes in and Eric stops playing, which surprised me, because
yeah.
usually bands will just play through something like that. But Eric stopped playing and the whole thing just falls apart momentarily there
Somebody,
from
somebody got a spit bath after that.
Oh, absolutely. There's
There's
no
no,
friggin' way that there
yeah.
wasn't some
Paul was not going
discussion.
to let them get away with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I think one of my favorite parts though of the whole CD, hate to say this because I'm not a huge fan of the song, is All Night. And just after Bruce's solo, they're doing like Bruce is doing like dun 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 dun, 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 like they're playing that guitar thing, and Paul just making the crowd chant, oh, and it's just like it was so cheesy and it
yeah,
was so 80, but I was like, this is so 80s right now. And that's like really, I think one of my favorite moments of the whole CD. I don't know
yeah,
why, but it was just
yeah.
something that maybe because I haven't heard it 10 million times, like that. But
Probably,
but it
yeah,
was like, all right, this is a cool moment over here. So
yeah.
I just wanted to call that out. But you said you had different opinions. Am I talking over you? Am I not giving you a chance to spread some of your other opinions that you have?
No, I think I basically, covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about as the overall, my overall review of this is that it was fun to listen to, just because, like you said, it connects with a very special time of our lives.
Yep.
And it brings you back. But I shouldn't say son. Musically, it's not my favorite era of listening to the band live.
Hmm.
Of hearing other recordings.
Right. Yeah.
But obviously very special.
Right.
So would I go back and continue to listen to this record? Probably not. That's the thing. I would go to other live recordings
Yeah.
that I much prefer. I mean, I know it's not even a fair comparison,
Hmm.
but it is a live recording. You think about Kiss Unplugged, even though it's an unplugged show, but just listen
Right.
to the way those songs are presented.
Look, I'll
And
agree
even
with you
in,
there. Because I mean, Unplugged is one of my favorite, all-time favorite live albums, period.
right.
But I think I will go back to this one, not weekly, but I think I will because, like I said, it put a smile on my face the whole time. So why wouldn't I want to revisit that if that's the feeling that I got
Yeah.
listening? So, but I have a question or two for you. We were talking before about the Paul introductions to songs. So that's a general question about live CDs. When you have introductions like that for songs, do you want those intros tagged at the end of the songs like they did for
Mm.
this? Do you want them at the beginning of the song that they're introducing because that's part of that song? Or do you want it as its own track so you can just skip it anytime you want? How do you like a live CD being released with some of those intros?
At the end of the song.
Yeah.
And this is my feeling. Because if I don't want to hear it, it's at the top of the song. Now you gotta do like a whatever you're using these days,
Yep.
seats,
Yep.
to make it an extra track. To me, it's like if the song ends and you were going to skip that anyway, hit skip, it goes right to the next song anyway. So you
Right.
don't really have to make it its own extra track. You know what
Yep.
I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, I'd rather hear it at the end of the song.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I was just curious. And it's funny because as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking of your brother, quite honestly, who purchased it on, I believe, on vinyl
Mm-hmm.
and was probably listening to the vinyl. And I will do going forward exactly like you just said. The song's over and he's doing the intro to Love Gun, which surprisingly was only 4 minutes. And I say that, tongue in cheek a little bit, but I was surprised it was only 4 minutes. But yeah, skip to the next track and it starts Love Gun. It's nice and
Yeah.
easy. If you're listening to this on vinyl, you can't do that very easily. I mean, what are you gonna do? Pick up the needle every like other
Yeah.
song?
Yeah.
And so I was wondering how people like your brother who listen to this on vinyl, do they just have to suffer through those things, or did he
Well,
lift the needle and go to the next song?
yeah. I mean, even back in the day, I mean, how many times did you listen to a record, right? And there was
Hmm.
some tracks on there that weren't your favorites. Did you really get up and skip the song and go to the next one
No,
often? I
no,
didn't do it. It was just
no.
part of the culture and listening to music.
Of
And
course,
that's what listen to when you listen to an album side.
right?
You listen to the whole thing,
Yeah, no, absolutely,
So
absolutely. This is another question that kind of came to my mind, and you're not going to be the right person to answer this. But throughout this show, the city is referred to as San Antonio and then sometimes San Antone.
hmm,
Which one is it? I have no
yeah,
idea. When
yeah,
they're introduced at the beginning, all right, San Antone, you wanted
yeah.
the best. And then right after the first song, Paul's like, hey, San Antonio. And I'm like, and then another time, Paul says San Antone. Which one? If you live in the Texas area, let me
Hmm,
know because I'm curious. I'd like to be educated on this. Is it San Antone or San Antonio?
yeah. Well, I think officially it's San Antonio if you look at it on a map, right? It don't say
That's what
San
I
Antonio.
think.
Yeah,
That's what I think. But how do locals pronounce it? I'm kind of curious about that.
yeah. That maybe that's what they were trying to relate to.
Maybe.
You know.
I don't know. It was just as I was listening to the CD, that was a question that came up in my mind. And then I guess obviously we spoke about this when this was announced. I do wish that there was one or two more Asylum songs at the show. It would have been nice to have a King of the Mountain or any way you slice it on here. If you were putting together the set list and pretend that the solos had to stay because it's a sign of the times, right? So you can't say I'm going to take out Paul's solo. What song would you remove from the set list to put in a King of the Mountain or in any way you slice it?
I'm looking now. Huh. Probably Cold Gin.
Wow, I did not
Yeah.
expect that.
Yeah, because at this point, look, I want to hit Fits Like a Glove,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess.
Full Gin, right? So they're only doing three or four. I think it's three 70s classics, and you're removing one of them for another asylum track. That's interesting. I like it. That's a bold move. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Probably.
I look, the reason they were doing Cold Gin again, I think lyrically it just sounded cool to an 80s crowd of teenagers. Oh, it's a song about alcohol, you know?
Of course.
So I'm sure that's why that one stayed.
Yeah, and it gives Gene another song to sing too.
Exactly.
They did want to try to split it.
Yeah. I think for me, I probably would have said Under the Gun. And I understand why they left it in because they were only doing 2 songs from their previous album at that point. But is Under the Gun, it's an album track. Is it really necessary to stay in the set list the following tour? Probably not. So in my mind, they could have dropped Under the Gun and done King of the Mountain. That would have been, promote the new album more. I always thought it was weird, even in 1990, for like, I think a month or 2, they brought back Under the Gun on the Hot in the Shade tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is just like weird to me. Like, why? Like, and again, I like the song. I have nothing against it. When it comes on, I'm like, but it's not necessary to be in the set list. I would have preferred them keep Young and Wasted over Under the Gun. But again, I guess they wanted to keep a couple of songs from the album just before this. But
right.
I'm kind of curious for the people watching and listening. If you're going to add one more Asylum tour and you can't get rid of the solos, which song do you trade out?
Yeah.
I said Under the Gun. Vin said Cold Gin. I'm curious what other people say. You're going to get some people say Rock and Roll All Night. That's not going to happen. They're not going to get rid of Rock and Roll All Night. They're not going to get rid of Love Gun, Detroit Rock City. Those are classics. So I guess they were doing four songs from the classic era, right?
Oh, yeah, Rock and Roll All Night. Yeah,
Rock and Roll All Night. Yeah.
That
song is just timeless, so you don't even count it as it's just timeless.
It's a given. That's like a given song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anything else that you want to bring up or mention?
I'm just looking at the tracks to see if there's anything else. No, I think I covered all the points I wanted to make about the record.
Yeah. No, I think we have a little bit different opinion. I'm going to mention 1 or 2 things that also surprised me. Maybe somebody else out there will know. During Paul's solo, he says, and maybe he's just BSing, that the microphone's connected to a sign. And as people cheer, the sign's going to light up or do something. I'd never heard that before at a Kiss show. I don't know if Paul was just BSing or if there was an effect that they were doing those first couple of nights of the tour that I just forgot about or lost sight of. So if anybody knows what he's talking about there, educate me, because I don't have a freaking clue what he was talking about there. So I know that at some point in the tour, Gene was using like a light up cape when he'd come out and do a solo. And it was like literally like this big cape, and it had like all these red lights all over it. I don't think he was doing that yet at the start of the tour. Did Paul have some kind of effect connected to a sign? Never heard that before, or I forgot about it. So I'm hoping somebody could educate me about that. And I also thought it was cool. I don't know if Paul missed the cue at the end of Eric's drum solo. Paul usually comes back out on stage, Eric Carr on the drums, and it wasn't Paul. It was Gene Simmons that actually announced Eric Carr on the drums. I was like, did Paul miss a cue? Or like, I'm sure that's probably all it was. But I just thought that was a funny moment listening to this show. But the microphone connected to a sign. If anybody can educate me on that, that would be great. Otherwise, I think we covered everything we can. I probably will be listening to this, even to the point that I said, I wish there was a CD for this. I would buy the CD. And look, I'll be honest, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm probably, people like me are part of the reason why there's no CDs, because the previous off the soundboards, I'd largely just stream them. I have 1 or 2 of the CDs, but I largely stream them. This is one I wish I had on a CD in the collection that I could look at, touch, see the cover. Maybe it's because it's the first official live album release from Bruce and Eric that I kind of feel like I want to own and touch. That part of me is disappointing. I probably will go back to listen to this one, but I'm disappointed I don't have that physical product that I could touch.
Yeah. Well, you could get it on vinyl and maybe it won't play it, but at least you could you actually have a large.
Yeah, I could stream it and hold the album in my hand while I'm streaming it.
Yeah.
One of the things that worries me with the streaming is that 10 years from now, will these still be available to stream? Of course, you'll find copies of them online somewhere. I'm not worried about that. But will they be taken off of an iTunes or wherever you're Spotify? Will these kind of releases drop off at some point?
Yeah.
I worry about that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm curious what people thought of this release now that you've had a chance to listen to it and let it marinate a little bit. what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What song would you drop from the set list to add another Asylum song to it? And just let us know your overall opinions and thoughts on it. I think, to me, this is exciting. I'm hoping there's more off the Soundboard releases coming in the future. My future, his future. but we will see what the future holds. But everybody, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We look forward to your opinions. And until then,
Oh yeah.
all right. Alrighty, there you have it. Our thoughts and our opinions on the latest Kiss Off the Soundboard release. We look forward to seeing and reading your thoughts and your comments as well. As always, all opinions are welcome and there's no right or wrong answers. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.